In a lot of ways, the New Agey type spiritual beliefs were meant to just be stepping stones to get to the real thing. But a lot of people, in a lot of ways, no fault of their own, made that the destination, so to speak. They made that like the true thing when it was just meant to sort of give you an idea of where you are, what you are, the perspective that you uptake. And I think in a lot of ways, these New Agey type beliefs can do more damage in people's life than good. One example in particular is when people get to the stage of a sort of deity worship, where they're looking up at something, they're looking out at something, saying like, my guides, my higher self, the source consciousness, and they're looking at this thing as if it's something separate from them. And then all of a sudden, this thing guides their life. This thing shows them the way and shows them the path. And now, in order to paint a clear picture of this, I want to talk about astral entities and how there are spirits on realms that we cannot see, that we cannot physically see, that interfere with us. In fact, a lot of the thoughts that come through our head come from entities. They come from vibrational entities. And this is not per se like there's ghosts everywhere and they're talking to us. You know, that happens. It's more so to say that the information that comes through our head is of a certain vibration, and that certain vibration shows itself to us in the ways of information, of thoughts that come through our head and tell us to do certain things. Now, some of these are more benevolent frequencies, just objectively. It's not like they have some sort of, it's not like they're humans, right? I'm just saying some frequencies, they will show up in a more benevolent way because that is just their nature. Then you have ones that are not as benevolent. A lot of these are like the false gods, false angels, false deities, and a lot of people can fall into these traps because the nature of, like I said, the deity worship, where someone's always looking outside themselves for the answers, that individual has foregone their own power and their own essence because they're no longer willing to recognize themselves as that higher force and to make decisions accordingly and to take that responsibility in choosing and in assimilating the information from yourself. It's not to say that you're no longer going to hear these voices, but it's to recognize that these voices, they're not something that you must obey. See, this is where this false ideal gets dangerous, because an individual could have this dependence on this voice or this essence or this energy that's guiding them, and they might not understand what that essence is. And in a lot of ways, someone might have that essence show up as a more demonic, dark force that appears like an angel or a guide or something that's, you know, that someone within that belief and mindset feels like they should listen to because it knows better than them. See, now this is the result of someone who's disconnected. And like I said, it's not about judging these people, saying like, oh, how dumb, like how could they not see that? Because like I said, it is a stepping stone. Nobody is born and immediately is like, right, all is self, it's all me, and embodies that. It takes time and it takes practice, it takes understanding, and it takes going through these experiences a lot of times to recognize where we are, who we are, what we are. And so a lot of people can get trapped in this stepping stone stage and then begin listening to entities and listening to voices that appear to be guides. They appear to be voices that are leading them to what they might want in life or positive outcomes within their life. And the reality is they're like parasites. They know that you have foregone your power as the creator itself. And they know that if they can keep you in that loop and keep you listening to them, they can literally consume your energy. because you're not using it. So they're going to hold that energy for you. They're going to consume that energy so long as you're not using it. And they want you to be bound to them. They want you to be codependent to them, because so long as you are, they can keep feeding on your energy and you will never realize it. Because I've said this before, but no one can take your power from you. You have to choose to forego your power in order for it to be taken from you. In a lot of ways, people are choosing to forego their power and they don't even realize it. They think they're praying to some higher thing and it's coming to save them and it's going to come and take care of them. And it's really some demonic parasite that is just feeding them ideas that, maybe sometimes they're actually good ideas. That's the thing. Objectively speaking, these beings, like I said, they're not human. So they might be just feeding you information, and sometimes that information might come through like, oh, that's actually a good idea, and it actually turns out to be a good result. But it doesn't matter, because even in doing that, they're still just consuming your energy, consuming your fullness, and making you think that you need that voice to come through, right? But in a lot of ways, this can end up ruining someone's life, because you can go down a path far enough that this entity begins becoming more and more convoluted. It's literally like the essence of greed, in a way, where you'd imagine this being and it just keeps getting like fatter and fatter, and all this energy that's not it, and all of the ideas start becoming more convoluted, more dangerous, more dark, more depraved. And then people start, in really extreme cases, this is when people start developing like multiple personalities and like schizophrenia and things like that, as like the medical Western physical world would diagnose this. But a lot of times, like I said, this is a spiritual parasite. And the only way that this parasite can survive is by you believing that you're listening to something that is like a true guide, a true essence. You think it's something that has power over you. You think it's something that you need to listen to that has power over you. Now, I'm not trying to downplay intuition here. Let me be clear about that. Because there are energies, especially when we connect to ourself as our fullness, as our wholeness, there are entities or energies that exist that once we're in that frequency, the energies are going to mirror that, and we do end up creating a sort of feedback loop where we're already in our wholeness and we know that we don't have to listen to what's outside of us, but within that space we start feeling like, oh, maybe this is the right choice or this isn't the right choice. So that's different than listening to something inside of you and feeling like that thing is more than you, like it has more power than you, it's more source than you are. That's the distinction that I want to make here, because like I said, a lot of people get into this stage where it's like they see something as higher than them, like it is more of the source than they are. It's greater than they are, and therefore it's in their best interest to listen to it. When in reality, the highest thing you could be is to claim your own power, recognize your wholeness, recognize what you already are, and then from there, realize that everything outside of you, including your thoughts and emotions, are reflections of your internal state. And people who get fooled by that start confusing the mirror reflection for themselves, okay? So, like I said, I don't want to necessarily put this in a way that there is not guidance. There is not something that you don't have a compass, in other words. There's not something you could rely on, because there is. But it has to come from a place of recognizing what's you and what's the reflection. If you get those mixed up, that's when you start attracting parasites, because these energies, these entities will start seeing you and will start coming in and being like, oh, they don't know who they are. They don't know their true power. They're just throwing it all around. We can come in here and sneak in and boom, you got an entity attached to your back. And now it's feeding you all these ideas that may or may not be true. And it's up to you to decide. But like I said, this can get to the point where it can cause some people like serious issues and like chronic mental symptoms within their life. And the thing is, I wouldn't necessarily call this, you could call it evil. You could see it as like, this is the devil, the satanic force, whatever you want to call it. But in reality, if you look at all of life as a lesson and all of life as like a school to learn, this is literally just an entity that shows up that says, I'm going to take your power so long as you are not going to take your power. And until we learn that lesson, those entities will keep bothering you. You'll keep having problems with that. The problem is that a lot of people like just don't even come to the awareness that, oh, maybe an entity is talking to you. Maybe this has nothing to do with you and it's actually just something that's trying to show you your wholeness. trying to show you back to yourself. So with that, we have to recognize who we are. We have to recognize that everything that is outside of us is a mirror reflection in some way of what we believe that we are. Because once we recognize our own wholeness and we put ourselves back together, so to speak, I'm not saying the entities will go away, but you'll see what's what. And you'll understand like what sort of forces and energies are coming to you, that you'll understand them as more of a suggestion. Just like anything, it's not something that is necessarily a whole truth. It is a subjective truth. And then you'll start to recognize what things reside in more of a benevolent frequency and what things reside in more of like a greedy, I'm trying to take your energy sort of frequency, but I need to fool you into doing so, right? Like I said, this can happen even beyond like non-physical entities. You have people in the reality that are so like ridden with, they're just full of these entities and parasites, and they begin building their personality off of that, and then they become parasites of others in the reality. Like it just goes on and on. This parasitic frequency is a very real thing. So like I said, we have to get away from this new age fallacy of feeling like there's something above us, something beyond us that's not us. Because we are it, we're already it. There's no God or source outside of you, but it is within you, and it requires that you correct your perspective and tap into it and recognize your oneness with it already. Because if not, there are plenty of forces that would love to have that energy for themselves, and until you learn those lessons for yourself, they will. So with that, my friends, I hope this makes sense. Hope this helps. Until next time, much love. Take care.